3, 2, 1.
Hey guys, in this video,
You are yelling so loud. We're going to talk about Mike skipping the 2K today.
and then
Managing training volume,
what happened in the first 6 weeks of training,
How to pick your skill programs.
and then what will happen in the next 6 weeks of training.
Lots
and
of
then
fun.
we'll also make fun of Mike, and I'll stop screaming.
Stay tuned.
Hey friends,
Which one are we talking to?
Just pick one.
which,
Everyone pick a different camera and talk.
I'm gonna talk to Chris.
Just going to stare right at this one.
all right, well then I'm going over here. Hi everybody. Hi everybody. This is a halfway recap. We're gonna go over some of the training that's already happened, what we're gonna do in the future, talk about some things that we've seen, and probably spend a good amount of time making fun of Mike because he deserves that.
Mainly because I'm pulling back on the 2K today.
Yeah, Mike decided to write us all a wonderful deload and put a 2K row in that deload, and then he decided to bail on his own 2K. So he's an unreliable coach and
typical,
an
right?
unreliable training partner.
Come on, guys. Come on, Max. 60 seconds. Come on, use your power now. Let's go. Come on, use your power. Let's go. 60 seconds to work. Let's go, Max. Come on, Brandon. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Open it up. Let's go. Everything now. Finish line. Finish line. Finish line. Finish line. Let's go. Wide open. Let's go. Let's go. Wide open. Come on. Let's go. Finish. Come on.
What'd you see, Coach? I saw Max yell real loud, and it scared me.
That was good effort. I don't know if he's angry or in pain, maybe both. Yeah, I know it was a PR for Max. Brannen looks like he could go do 100 pistols and 30 hang power cleans right now.
Mike, why didn't you do it?
Because I'm listening to my body.
Somebody had to support Max.
Max can support himself, clearly.
Nice job, man.
I just need to get it out.
You beat Brannen.
Did I?
Yeah, 5.1.
The happiest I've ever seen him.
Partner.
Someone's got to step up and know when to follow the other part that says if you're not feeling the 2K, go do some easy movement work.
Yeah, it does say that. So
He planned that. That's why he wrote that in the notes.
I woke up this morning and changed it. No.
Yeah, I went in last week and it wasn't in there. Now all of a sudden.
why don't we talk about the CrossFit path first?
Yeah,
since-
so the pattern will kind of stay the same for the coming weeks. Interval style CrossFit on Monday, Metcon on Tuesday, interval style on Wednesday, more training focus in terms of gymnastics. Thursday off, Friday interval again, and then Saturday throwdown. The difference this time moving forward from what we've seen the last 6 weeks is that you probably noticed there hasn't been a pattern of a ton of upper body pulling gymnastics. We've just kind of maintained them, mainly because we're just trying to control overall volume. It's been more lower body focused, like you've seen a lot of squat volume. These next 6 weeks moving forward, you're going to see more upper body pulling volume coming back in, more pull-ups, higher volume of muscle-ups. And then the handstand push-ups and strict pressing will kind of be there, like just as touches, almost adverse to how pulling was the last 6 weeks.
So when we did like those intervals that had the push-ups and handstand walking, we'll have pulling variations of those moving forward, or just like more in Metcons?
Not in that same scenario. You'll see more like repeat Metcons with pulling gymnastics in it.
Great.
Yeah.
My hands are gonna really appreciate that.
Yeah. When I say repeat Metcons, like repeat intervals.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
Engine.
Max's hand has been ripped since week 1.
I feel like
On a workout that had
four more muscle ups. He skipped the last 4 more muscle ups.
his hand tore so bad that he had to skip the dumbbell front squats.
I
I can't hold it anymore.
The engine path, all of you are testing a 2K this week, either in the CrossFit path or in the engine path. So hopefully everyone's PRing that. We saw a lot of good PRs, or those that posted yesterday. So good job on that.
I reposted some too. 6 seconds in 5 weeks.
Yeah, really,
it's
really good improvements
impressive
on that.
Yeah, I saw someone had a 5 second. There was a couple at 6. So any PR in a 2K, especially if you're trained.
I'm just hoping I
tough.
live.
If you're already under a 640 and you're getting a 5-second PR, that's
huge.
pretty impressive, and you had to hurt for that.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully you guys will kind of see the fruits of your labor there. So on Mondays, we're going to transition into some assault bike stuff now. If you have an assault bike, you can even do a C2 bike or a rogue bike if you have those. So you'll notice that starting in week 7, so next week. And then on Wednesdays, there's going to be a lot of run volume. Basically, we'll just go all the way through week 12 with a bunch of running work, just running intervals, and that will kind of lead off with, or finish off with a test. And then Tuesdays, Saturdays will still be recovery days. So I've been trying to encourage people to make those sustainable and easy, and especially, we'll talk about this later on, but if you're following different paths, those days are not meant to be hard in the engine path, because there's a ton of hard strength work, which Max will talk about, and then obviously the CrossFit path is pretty challenging as well, so keep that in mind. And then Friday's more interval-based or power-based, which will kind of stay the same that you've seen over the first 6 weeks.
Yeah, so I wrote the strength path in kind of 3 subsequent 4-week blocks. So we're going to be, as of this video, we're 2 weeks into the second block. So we changed movements a little bit. I rotated the days that the squats were on from Monday, Friday to Tuesday, Friday. Basically, all of the theme is still the same. I feel like in order to get strong, especially with a barbell, you need a lot of continued time and practice and development of technique. So this whole 12 weeks is all focused on Olympic lifting development. And then one of the things that we saw from testing that kind of made me switch and put the hatch cycle in is that there's a lot of people that are pretty technical. I mean, they sent videos and they're not perfect lifting. Like, we definitely need to constantly get better as CrossFitters, being more technical, but overall strength levels in the squat were just relatively low. So if your back squat is 300 pounds and you're trying to snatch over 200 pounds, that conversion is a lot easier to get to if you can push your back squat up to 350. So the hatch cycle is a 12-week program that's embedded into the program, into the strength program now. We're 1 week behind the cycle since week 1 didn't have the hatch in it. So as of week 6, we're in week 5 of the hatch. So that's going to continue all the way through. We'll do 2 more weeks with the current movement patterns that are in the strength training program right now. And then in week 8, there's going to be a shift where we've been doing a lot of percentage work with the Olympic lifts, a lot of, doubles at 81 to 85%. Singles, clusters, all that type of stuff. As we get into the last 4 weeks, it'll just be more intense on the Olympic lifting. The hatch will stay the same. The gymnastics day that we have on Saturday will just be a little bit of a jump in progressive intensity on those movements. So basically the skills that we've been doing for the first 4 weeks, they jumped up in intensity for the next 4 weeks, and then the last 4 weeks, they'll jump up in complexity again one more time, hoping that it kind of rounds out gymnastics, strength work, the Olympic lifting getting more intense, and then the squat development stuff getting driven up through the 12-week hatch cycle. So it's a lot of the same, but a different theme so that it doesn't get too repetitive and boring as we go through it.
I think that leads into us talking about some of the results we've seen over the last 6 weeks, specifically the difference from those that are thriving in the program right now with the volume or with the right amount of volume, and then those that are kind of just surviving. Some of the things that we've seen with comments. I wanted to dive in and talk a little bit about how to manage the paths better. So at this point now, you're 6 weeks in, you should have a good idea on like what level of volume you can handle, and then like what you might need to cut out or add in.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is, before we even get into it, I don't think training volume should ever be a badge of honor. And I think a lot of people will do all the paths because it's written and they can do all the paths. But the point of this program, or really any training program, is to get better. And it's to identify what it is that you need to get better at and make sure that your plan is putting you on the path to progress for your specific goals. And I think what I've seen in some of the results is there could potentially be a mismatch in terms of what I see as somebody has a weakness, and let's just say snatch and clean and jerk numbers are too low relative to what they want to compete in the sport, which is an easy one to identify, right? Like if people are doing their snatch intervals, on the male side at 185 pounds, and then you know in a workout like 17.3, the snatches go 135, 185, 225, 245, 265.
Yep.
You know in order to be better at that, you need to be stronger. Then you have people that are falling into that category that are doing all the training volume. It just might not be the right choice. You might be better off cutting out the engine work just to do a little bit less volume, doing the strength and doing a modified CrossFit workout instead of doing a lot of volume.
Yeah, I would say like the main thing I would look at is you need to identify what it is that's most important. Like what are the consistent bottlenecks that you seem to be hitting? And then you need to do more of that, not more of other stuff, right?
Yeah.
So like more intensity and volume at the things that you need to be better at, and not more volume of just everything else,
not
just
just
because
work.
you have time in a day.
Yeah.
I think people correlate their fitness to breathing hard and like going fast, but the reality is that in this sport, it's all about how many reps you get or the amount of time that you do it. So a lot of that comes down to the bottlenecks that you have. Like to be good, you can't have those bottlenecks. Excuse me. All of us are coughing, by the way.
Not me.
Sickness. That's because you're not doing 2K day. But I think what happens is people, like, so the responses from yesterday's training had chest to bars in it. And I noticed multiple people said I had to break up the chest to bars into 6 or 7 sets on the first or second round. So I couldn't go as fast as I wanted to. That's a clear indication that chest to bars need to get better. So instead of doing all the pass, maybe the focus is, and this is why we wrote the skill progressions, right? Focus on the chest to bar skill progressions, continue to get better at those so then that you can raise your ceiling so you can go fast and breathe hard later on in training.
Yeah, because like sorry to cut you off, the example yesterday with that is it was only 3-minute AMRAPs, so you're not getting a lot of density and practicing chest to bars. So it's good that you're working on them in a Metcon, but you need more time than that. You need 30 to 45 to an hour of skill work with the chest to bar progression. So I think that's what you're about to dive into.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there is the option, too, of seeing a workout like that, knowing that you want to get better at chest to bars, and that, let's say you crush that workout, like Dylan was doing a round plus a little bit every time through the 3-minute intervals. You're still only getting 16 chest to bars over the course of 3 minutes. So spread out over, that's 11 minutes of total work. You're only getting 48 total chest to bars. Whereas in an open style Metcon, if you want to be like competitive, you're going to be doing more
75
than
to 100,
double that. So that it's not really enough volume to really drive the skill. The purpose of that specific workout is not chest to bar development or chest to bar density. So you can just look at that workout and say, you know what, I want to practice going fast. I'm going to put a sub in there. I'm going to put rowing in there for a similar amount of time. So 16 unbroken chest to bars is like, let's say 30 seconds. So you can say I'm going to do 10 calories on the rower every round of that to practice getting in and out, and then do the chest to bar skill program so that you get more volume. So there are some creative ways to manipulate it. When I post the full week on Sunday, if there are people that are in that boat, I mean, asking those types of questions or coming up with an idea, writing it up and saying, hey, what do you think about this? I think could potentially help people get better faster.
Yeah, the big picture is identifying the limitations that you have. So either reach out to us or, like Max just said, come up with some strategies yourself that you can scale these workouts to make sure that you're focusing on those things. I just want to reiterate this. To be better at this sport, it's not always about just breathing hard and going fast, but it really is about identifying those weaknesses and cleaning up the skills so you have no bottlenecks in those workouts. And then that is what raises your ceiling so that you can express your fitness later on.
Yeah, so let me know if you guys would agree with this. So looking at the template through the week, if your concern is trying to be as competitive as possible with the numbers of people in the group, I would say the main concern is saving that for the Saturday throwdown and then using the rest of the CrossFit days through the week as your opportunity to kind of adjust, mix and match to make sure that you're hitting the priorities that you need. So being okay with that through the week.
Yeah, I think it's just understanding training versus testing. And we build the throwdowns so that people could practice competing and practice racing and practice score development. And I know for myself, like, I'm competitive, I want to do well, but I also know, like, I have constraints in my life. I have constraints with regards to my body size relative to the sport. So there's all these things that go into whether or not I'm going to be good or bad. If I'm sitting there and comparing myself to somebody like Dylan Pettit in the design who's crushing all of these workouts, I'll do a workout and be like, I executed that pretty well, and he'll beat me by 3 minutes on something. Then that, if I use that as a reason to beat myself up or gauge whether or not I did well in my training session, I feel like it's just
a means to an end.
Yeah, it's just a recipe for not enjoying the process.
Yeah,
so I think
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that. I mean, the reality is we're not gonna make the workouts any easier because we have people like the Dylan Pettits that really excel with high, tough workouts. So you need to adjust around that and understand that, like, if you go in and you execute really well, like, be okay with that, regardless of the number that someone elite put up.
Yeah, and not needing to necessarily finish everything, or if it says 3 to 6 sets, do the 3 sets.
Yeah, there's a reason why we put that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out, like, we understand there's a range of athletic development. We have masters that are over 50, then we have professional athletes that are 20s, low 20s, and then everything in between. And we're doing the program, so we understand, like, it's hard. There's a lot of volume. There's a lot of things that need to be managed. And it is, I think, a lot about managing your ego to make sure that you can just have fun doing it while structuring it in a way where you can be in a training mind state that says, like, all right, I'm coming in, here's my focus for the day, here's how I'm going to approach the workout, here's my target, versus Saturday throwdown, all right, I'm going to get my best score possible and do whatever I can, even if that means doing single chest to bars or whatever the case is, whereas in training you might be trying to do 4 unbroken.
Yeah. So I think this kind of leads into, like, how to choose how much volume to do each day, because obviously we have 3 paths, and it is enticing for those that have the time to like, oh, I'm going to do the CrossFit path, I'm going to do the engine path, I'm going to do the strength path. We all know, like, we're mostly just doing the CrossFit path, and we're all like, man, it's tough,
a lot,
right? So I can only imagine those that are following everything. I think that for most people, that's probably not the way to go. So how should they look at choosing overall volume throughout the week?
Well, I would say the skill programs. If you have a skill that is listed in the skill programs, and we're going to continue to try to add to those, but for this cycle, those 7 are the ones that we're building out. If you have a weakness that is one of those movements, I would say that that should be a priority, because anytime you have a bottleneck, like for me, strict handstand push-ups, anytime they come up into a workout where I'm competing against them or looking at scores, I'm literally just standing at the wall. So if I want to be more competitive and all I'm doing is the same amount of work as them by doing the Metcons, and I'm getting half the reps, I'm literally worse than them and doing half the work every time handstand push-ups come up, which is like 0% chance I close any sort of a gap. So prioritizing the skill session, if you have a major limitation, I think would be important. And then I think identifying what it is that you want to get better at in the sport, because the strength path will help you get stronger at all different classifications of strength. It'll help you improve your weightlifting, help you improve your powerlifting, help you improve your gymnastics, but it might not necessarily transfer to you getting better at CrossFit if the stuff in CrossFit you need to get better at is not pure strength development. So I think the first thing you have to do is say, like, what's my training goal? And make sure that you pick the first path that is your main body of your program. So whether that's, all right, I want to do engine stuff because I just want to get better on the machines, or I want to do strength because I'm just overall not super resilient, want to be more structurally sound, or I want CrossFit because I like the variation, I like the racing, I want to compete in the open. Use that as your main body and then fill in everything else. I think you should always have one that's your primary focus, and then everything else should be layered on, as opposed to thinking that the program is written to be done as all 3 paths. That's more, from my perspective, that's more of a singular person that is training to try to be a pro athlete than it is like, oh, the program's written as 3 paths. It's the program is written with 3 options that you should choose one of, and then if you're adding extra volume, it should be a special situation. You're a full-time athlete, you got a lot of time on your hands, you want to get better and compete at the sanctionals. Those are the only people that I would recommend doing like multiple paths every day. Sprinkling in a couple extra sessions, maybe that makes sense. But for most people, I'd say one major body of your path, then skill programs, and then layering other stuff in relative to what your time demands and your weaknesses are.
Yeah, so I think 2 options if you're unsure on how to analyze that. One, we're 6 weeks into the cycle now, so you've got a lot of data on yourself. Go back and look at where did most of the bottlenecks show up in the Metcons, in the training, in the strength training, in the engine work. And then that'll help you kind of paint the picture of what to choose now. Because maybe you came in and when you started, I don't really know which one I need to work on, but now we've got 6 weeks of workouts in, and you can help kind of decide that. The other option is email us and ask questions about it, right? Send us an email and say, I'm unsure, all these options gave me decision fatigue. Just help point me in the right direction, and we can help with that.
The other thing I think people can start to think about is their end goals for the year, right?
Yeah.
So if it's just I'm prepping for the October Open, then you have a lot of time, and maybe it is you go back and say, okay, the first thing I need to work on is my strength. Like I'm not strong enough to get to that 265 snatch bar that you brought up earlier. So then maybe
Gotta
it is
do it
you're
now.
doing
Yeah.
just the strength path right now, and then you have plenty of time over the summer and kind of into the early fall before the Open to develop the CrossFit skills. If you're someone that's like, I'm doing these competitions, I want to prep for CrossFit, then that's a different idea. And so that's one of the things that I've told, or people that have reached out to me via email, said, what's the end goal, and then where are your numbers at? That's kind of what you need to look at first. So that's just something to think about. If you have a lot of time, then you can kind of base build right now with the biggest limitations that may take the longest, and then kind of taper off when it's time for competition.
Cool. You guys have anything else?
I don't want to do my 2K.
What about new people coming into the program starting now, having missed the first 6 weeks of this block? Any considerations for them?
Yeah, so somebody asked me this specifically. They jumped into the program. I would say that the best thing to do from my perspective, if you're trying to leverage a community-based program, is to try to get onto the same timeline as all of us. So jump into the program the best that you can. The couple downsides to that, or the couple caveats to that, are the skill development programs. They're always intended to be started on week 1. So I have it written, or we have it written in the program, like week 5 skill progression, assuming that people started with us when we first released them and dripped them.
Yeah.
But if you're coming in and you're starting in week 7, then you would jump back when we do the skill programs and we're in week 7, and you do week 1 and just post your results in there. And they live there, indefinitely, and we get those comments when they come in. So those going back and being dated or posted retroactively, I don't think is a problem.
Not to cut you off, but just real quick, for those that are doing that, one of the options to catch up is like you do week 1 on a Tuesday and then do week 2 on a Saturday. So you're still doing both, and you can catch up in a couple of weeks that way.
Yeah, you could. It'd probably be a good amount of volume
Right.
per week on a single movement.
Real quick, since someone watching this video might not even know how the skill program works, explain that real quick so they're not just completely confused.
All right, so let's say, for example, handstand walking is one of the skill development programs. We have a 12-session program that's designed to help people better handstand walk. And they've kind of evolved where we have like strength and skill development portions for people that can't yet handstand walk. And then we have more advanced interval-based programs for people that can handstand walk but can't do it fast enough, or can't do it really well under fatigue, or can't do big, long, unbroken sets. So as a way to train those skills and have a body of training that's specifically just for handstand walking, that's not just, okay, well, we're doing 25 foot of handstand walking mixed with thrusters and you're going to get 75 feet. It's giving you a 30-minute block of time to get better at that independent skill. So practicing the skill specifically, some strength specific movements that are helping you develop the body awareness and connection to make those skills more efficient over time, and just allow you to be focused on just that one thing. So that's what the skill program is, which is different than the main body of the CrossFit program, which is like CrossFit is constantly varied. So a lot of it is like intervals for time, pairing thrusters with pulling, pairing thrusters with pressing, and just giving people a bunch of different looks and a bunch of different racing options. It's good to get good at racing, but eventually you need to kind of build a better car. You need better tires, better engine, better stuff to actually race against other people.
I love fitness analogies.
I mean, it is really true. Every other sport, people are breaking down their sport to like the very basics, right? Like Steph Curry's working on the way that he releases the basketball over and over and over again. Tiger Woods is working on what his hands do in his golf swing, not just playing golf. So in the same way, that's what these skill programs are. It's taking a movement that may be a bottleneck and breaking it down to the very basics so you can continue to improve that movement.
Yeah, one of my philosophies too when I build skill programs like this is that the general, I'm going to go back to the handstand walking one. So the general issues you get with people that are trying to do a lot of handstand walking is like, oh, my shoulders get sore, or my lower back gets tight when I do this, or my wrists start to get bothered. So what I try to do is like, all right, I'm going to think of this like a strength program that is building strength in ranges of motion that are deeper and more complicated than are required just to handstand walk. So that way, if you have the strength requirements to do like a back bridge hip tap, for example, which I know a lot of people don't have yet, even just like normal feet elevated back bridges are tough for people. if you can develop that type of strength, then your overall ability to practice the lower intensity skill of handstand walking goes up. So I think if people go through this and they start to develop the wrist strength, the shoulder strength, the complexity of motion that's required in your spine to be able to do these movements, they'll allow themselves to actually practice the skill more frequently and get better training over time when it is just put into a Metcon.
Yeah, I think you see the same thing with like double unders, right? Like you're just building more body awareness, practicing more hand works, footwork drills, other than just slamming your feet into the ground over and over, working two-dimensionally, trying to get better at the double under.
Yeah, I know for me, like that program and like why Molly Metz is all the demos is I hired her to help me. And I was just like, I want to get better at double unders. Why am I never doing double unders? And the reality is if you're trying to get better at double unders and you're just hammering volume of that, for me, like massive foot pain, shin splints, whereas if you're doing varied footwork patterns and you can do thousands of rope repetitions without getting as much pattern overload. So it's a way for us to try to kind of creatively develop programs that give people more volume, more movement complexity, while also just making those skills better so that they have less bottlenecks.
And Brandon, explain how those are incorporated into the training week.
Yeah, so each week we have 2 skill sessions. So on a Tuesday and a Saturday, one of the parts of the training program in the CrossFit Path are the skill program. So on a Tuesday, you'll come in, it'll say skill program week 5, week 6, week 7, whatever it may be, whichever week we're on, you would choose whatever your bottleneck is. So we have 7 in there right now. The next block, we'll talk about this in a later video, but we'll have more skill programs. So let's just say for me, it's toes to bar. So I want to work on toes to bar. I would have followed from week 1 all the way down to week 6 right now. And then that's a way for me to continue to develop the toe to bar skill and then obviously build some volume there as well.
We actually had one more thing to talk about with regards to the skill program. And if you're doing Tuesdays training, for example, or Saturdays training, for example, and there's a carryover of those 2 movements, like what?
Just time and volume in general. We were talking about that. We saw a lot of people make comments that were doing the skill program going into the CrossFit work, and the volume of the skill program bled into their quality of the CrossFit work for the day. And we just thought we needed to address that again, like you need to know and pay attention to what the priority is. And if handstand push-ups are your priority, then be okay with the Tuesday Metcon or the Tuesday CrossFit being cut down a little bit. It's up to you to decide how you want to do that, whether it's you stay on the low end of the recommended rep ranges, or if it's a Metcon, be okay with either it being a little slower and more controlled or cutting the volume in half. I think you just need to be creative with what allows you to kind of walk out of the day not having just like done a bunch of busy work.
Yeah, so a couple options. You can switch the order. So if you want to do the CrossFit stuff first because that's your priority and then the skill stuff afterwards, you can do that. Or if there's your skill movement, let's say your skill movement, strict handstand push-ups, and then the actual CrossFit body on a Tuesday has strict handstand push-ups, coming up with a scaling option so that you can just do your strict handstand push-ups as skill work and then do something else in place on your Tuesday will allow you to get 2 quality training blocks as opposed to 1 really good skill session that leaves you completely exhausted pressing wise and then a frustrating CrossFit workout where you're trying to do
why isn't the skill program working?
Oh, that's another thing too, is expectations of speed of progress. I mean, the people that you see in the program that are really good, like, you know, Mike, how long have you been, you know, throwing around a barbell?
11, I don't know, throwing around a barbell?
Well, just say, let's say CrossFit.
Years.
Yeah, so 11 years consistently with really no break on the barbell because the time you took a CrossFit break, you went into weightlifting. So you see somebody with 11 straight years of training history and you see their results and you're like, oh, I want that. You got to realize that all skills are like that. The people that are best at muscle ups and handstand walking are doing it continuously for years. So while this is a good skill program, it is still just one time a day. And you have to have expectations that this stuff, it builds like a snowball over time. So be patient with yourself as you're going through these skill programs and just going through training programs in general, and try to be positive and optimistic about getting better very slowly and incrementally, and having consistency be the thing that builds you over time.
Stick with it. Halfway there.